Welcome in to the first episode of Hodge and Snick. Well, we're workshopping this, but I'm Griffin Warner, the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Across from me, I have Andrew Schnicker, A underscore SCHNITKER, because I'm a spelling champion, good friend of mine from college. And we are going to bring you NFL content starting today with a futures episode. And we'll also go through each Wednesday night we plan to record. Of course, schedules come up. We'll see what happens. But everyone, if you like this, please let us know. Wherever this is being distributed, wherever you find it, please follow, subscribe, do all the things, leave 5-star reviews, all that sort of stuff. Get us up the search rankings. That would appreciate it. Andrew, if you want to talk a little about yourself while I get everything ready in the background, it can be short and sweet. Go on in.
Oh man, where do we begin? I have so many stories on Griffin, but we'll save those for future episodes. If we're getting down to business here, Griffin, you and I have been doing this for almost a decade now. We each have our own specialties. My moneymaker is football, college and NFL, and we've really started pouring more resources into this in the last little while. So I have a background in sports broadcast and sports journalism, and also been dabbling in the betting world for quite some time.
Most of you may know me from the pregame.com podcast network. We're taking a brief hiatus from there, but we'll see what happens. More to come on that in the future. I'm not going to give Andrew the floor anymore because I'm afraid of what stories might come out. So on today's episode, we're going to do what we normally do. We'll close with some best bets at the end. So make sure you stick around for those. We're going to try to cut for at least one team for each division. We'll see how the time goes and see how fast we go along through all of these teams. But all lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, our favorite place to get our bets down early. Reduced use is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account. Use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So now that you have some extra money in your account, I'm going to let Andrew take the reins here, and we're going to start in the AFC East. And I figure we ping pong back and forth. Probably don't have enough time to go through all 32 teams, but give me something you want to share. And of course, don't forget best bets coming end of show.
Sure. So the AFC East, it's a gauntlet. There's lots of different angles you could go. I see three high quality teams. I see three playoff teams and one team that's on the decline. Let's start with the Jets, the Hard Knocks darling, the team that a lot of the public is going to be interested in throughout the year. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers and getting that preseason exposure. It happens every single year. And I think most of the time the market wants to push away from that team. It wants to downgrade that team. I'm not so sure. I really like the pieces that the Jets have. Garrett Wilson is a guy that I've followed from high school all the way throughout his ranks and to Ohio State and now to the Jets. I don't think it's a stretch to see him as Aaron Rodgers is next to Davante Adams. We saw a little bit of that chemistry in Hard Knocks. The guy just has a massive catch radius. He catches every single ball thrown his way. And as we know, Rodgers likes his guys. He likes guys that are reliable. He likes guys that are smart. He likes guys that are going to be in the places that he tells them to go. I also like some of the other veterans they added to it. I think with Robert Saleh, the defensive mind there, super savvy, and they've got some pieces to be as good as they were last year on defense. What we're looking at win total wise, over 9.5. What about $1.15 juice on that? That's a pretty steep price at this point. I think that's a pretty good number as it is. But looking at where they finished last year and giving them a couple more wins there, I would look at the Jets to impress. I would look at the Jets to surprise this season.
Yeah. So looking at, you're not alone. Maybe it is something about the marketplace or Hard Knocks or Aaron Rodgers' trade. I grabbed some Super Bowl lines from February 13th of 2023. Many moons ago, and the Jets have been taking a fair amount of money, down 36% from 25-1, down from what I pulled yesterday to 16-1 odds at BetOnline. So clearly there's some love there. I guess you can be the good cop for the Jets. I'll be the bad cop. Yeah. I wonder a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and really who he is now. I'm concerned about his age, his change of landscape, the fact that the Packers wanted to move on from him, I would think that they would have had a clue about their most prized asset, and potentially maybe they didn't give up too early. Maybe it's the right time to ship them off and go rebuild and start somewhere else. Of course, contracts and things like that come up. And we saw how good the Jets were last year with nothing at quarterback. So maybe there is some value in them going forward. I think I'm going to stay on the I'll believe it when I see it camp. But certainly with Aaron Rodgers' background and his history, certainly I can't blame you for liking them. My biggest interest, I think, in that division is really the Buffalo Bills. I'm concerned about they're favorites to win the division, but I'm most concerned about Josh Allen and his arm, really. The health last year was not really there, was one of the best quarterbacks in all of football until he hurt his elbow last year. As far as I know, didn't have Tommy John or something like that. And I mean, we saw it in fantasy with Stephon Diggs' production that completely got cut to very, very little after his injury. So I worry that he might potentially have some flare up, or that there might be some problems that weren't actually fixed. What do you think about Josh Allen, his health, and how that will impact the Bills going forward?
Well, I think let's take it even one step back. One of my favorite guys in the NFL is Brian Daboll, the head coach for the Giants. And this is no slight against Ken Dorsey, who I think did a really good job as the offensive coordinator last year. But Brian Daboll just knows how to work with quarterbacks, and he put Josh Allen in some wonderful positions 2 years ago, using his legs in the right way, getting him out and running it when the defense isn't expecting a run, which is really one of the more dangerous plays in the NFL. But I think going to the health part of it, that's a concern, because if he's not a willing runner, you're cutting out a big piece of what makes him so dangerous. There were some other offseason rumors, some other questions with Josh Allen that not worth totally bringing up, but if you do some Googling, you can definitely find some other things. To me, he's one of the best he's a top 3 quarterback. That's not new information there. But I do think the players around him, and even the head coach and his mentality of more of a defensive minded guy, I think Brian Daboll was a guy that could really, really push those limits. And I'm not sure if Ken Dorsey is the guy that also pushes those limits.
Got it. And the Bills are currently 4th most likely to win the Super Bowl, according to BetOnline odds. Let's move now to the AFC North, and I'll let you take it away.
I was also going to say,
okay,
we do this. Sure. We do this in the terms of the market sense, right? Like, I think the Bills are a very, very good team. We're talking about it in terms of the numbers. I just wanted to clarify there. No, in no way am I thinking the Bills are going to have a bad season or anything else. Where are we going? I just wanted to make sure.
Let's go to the AFC North. And
AFC
sure, yes,
North.
all of this is designed with the idea that we are speculating based on the market prices and market opinions. Of course, those change really quickly, especially in week 1. I think my favorite week of the NFL season to bet is week 2, based on whatever the heck happened in week 1. Go the opposite in the next one. Maybe not that simple. But yeah, if you got someone from the AFC North, jump in, or I can take one. Go ahead.
Let's go with the Ravens. I think that's every professional bettor's favorite side this offseason. Oh, maybe not from Griffin, but I think with the addition of Todd Monken, with so much of this, it's the fine little details. They add the offensive coordinator from the University of Georgia. Lamar Jackson gets paid. J.K. Dobbins is a year off of that ACL injury or Achilles injury. So he is fully ramped up and ready to go. And we were seeing what J.K. Dobbins can be near the tail end of last season. And I think they'll actually take some of the harness off and let him run wild. I just really love what this offense could be. Harbaugh is one of my favorite coaches in terms of game strategy and the mind that he has. But there's a lot of love for the Ravens this year, and there's a lot of love at 10.5. And I think that we'll go over the Super Bowl odds, but I would assume that they're pretty high up there as well.
Yeah, I'll read those. So I had them at 25-1 as of February 13th, down to 14-1. So a drop of 44%, pretty significant. They are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7th most likely to win the Super Bowl, according to BetOnline. And I actually am kind of in agreement, because I don't think their quarterback's going to quit halfway through the season this year, which is pretty important considering he's one of the most important players in the game, the sport, everything. Honestly, I think my biggest question mark is always with the Ravens, how they're going to throw the ball. But if Lamar Jackson is running and is staying healthy and is able to he's kind of quieted some of those doubters, certainly. There's still a run-based offense, which I think is great for cold weather games where it's really harder to throw with weather and other situations. If you can run the ball, you can potentially never give the ball back. So always a good start for me. I got another question. I'll bring up the Cincinnati Bengals, who are the favorite to win the AFC North. Really, I'm wondering about the health of Joe Burrow. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but I feel like these injuries before all of the injuries that rack up during the season come, that's potentially going to be a problem for the Bengals, for a lot of people invested like myself in Bengals wide receivers in fantasy football this year. Is there a concern from your side that maybe Joe Burrow is a little more banged up than we think he is? I mean, I guess this is 2 for 2 quarterbacks on teams that I'm bringing up that I'm a little concerned about.
We'll change it up each time because I've now brought up 2 offensive coordinators, but I don't know if you should know that offense obviously rules the NFL. So we're going to be talking about the side of the ball that makes the biggest difference and makes the biggest impact. It's a good question with Joe Burrow. And again, I don't want to sidestep the question. I think based off of Zach Taylor's post or pregame and preseason comments, I think that there is something to the injury. And I think their offensive line has been a problem. They've spent a lot of money there over the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's the last 2 years, really, starting before that Super Bowl run, Super Bowl appearance. It's still just not good enough. They just don't have the depth. If one guy goes down on that offensive line, you're putting in a guy that's at or below replacement level in offensive line rankings. And Burrow is smart, and they are smart in that way of getting the ball out quickly and being aware of that. But there's only so many times you can take a hit. That yes, it's fair to be concerned, especially with how coy they have been and how quiet Zach Taylor has been when talking about the Burrow injury and finally coming back to practice. Just what was that earlier this week?
Yeah, it's hard to know because, I mean, do they really need the reps? Obviously, he's not going to lose his starting position to anybody. But I think to your point, and I will admit to everyone listening to this, watching this, wherever you are, thank you. I usually go with O-line questions to Andrew Schnicker because I think he watches O-line more than he watches the rest of the game. Maybe that's not true, but
no, that's how I started. That's definitely how
you start, because the trenches,
the line of scrimmage.
The trenches are where the wars are won. I mean, looking at the rest of this division, the Browns and the Steelers come in later. Maybe if we go for a second futures episode, we can jump to that. So we'll move now to the AFC South, which actually has a pretty big favorite, the Jacksonville Jaguars, at minus 175 right now to win the division, which is saying something considering I think there's some doubts about that team, to say the least. But maybe it's the rest of the division so bad that maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to look very good.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on.
Yeah, sure. All right. We can move. If that's not a good use of our time, I certainly understand. I'm just thinking the Texans are going to be terrible. The Colts might be worse. Not priced that way currently, but I'm wearing a Tennessee Titans shirt. It's the only NFL thing I could dig out of the closet, which I'm glad I found it pretty quick right before we started. Still, to me, seems like the Titans are always a threat, considering we know I went to a dinner with Mike Vrabel one time, humble brag, I know, but he just literally said, we're just trying to go what then was 8-8 every year because I think I'll keep my job. He's done far better than that. I'm not really sure exactly about the quarterback situation, but if Derrick Henry's playing and is doing things, I think that's going to be a huge thing for that team going forward. Maybe we just spend a little time in this division. Do you got any thoughts you want to get off your chest?
Absolutely. Yes. And let's hit on the Jags a little bit. They were one of the surprise teams at the end of last season, but I think some of the data and some of the stats that if we're looking at it, I think it kind of stacks up. I'm a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. I think Doug Peterson is a really, really great mind and a perfect coach for Trevor Lawrence in that spot. I think if we're talking offensive line, which we just did, it's a little dicey there. But the passing offense that they had coming down the stretch and into the playoffs was one of the better offenses in the league. Calvin Ridley is a guy that I've tried to scoop up in every single fantasy league I have. I've been trying to pair him with Trevor Lawrence because I think those two together. Christian Kirk's another great option. I think getting any of those wide receivers on your fantasy team is a solid option. And the division is just so weak, really. Vrabel will have something to say about it with the defense that's always very good no matter the pieces. But I do think it's the Jags division to lose.
Got it. Well, let's move on to the AFC West, where we have another minus money favorite. There's probably a better way to put that. Odds on favorite is probably the way to say it. Chiefs minus 165. Hard to really talk about anything besides Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So I kind of want to bring up the Denver Broncos because they've got a lot going on over there. Certainly some coach speak beginning of the year saying how the guy before him didn't know what he was doing. It's like being the ex-boyfriend or blaming the ex-boyfriend for a lot of the problems that he caused in your current girlfriend. I don't know. Andrew's married, so I'm in a different boat. But anyway, I've heard that before. What do we think about, I guess, Sean Payton's return to the NFL? Do we think the game has passed him by because he was on a desk for a year or two?
No, I don't think so. I think it is a matter of, is Russell Wilson willing to adapt to Sean Payton's coaching style? What we saw last year from Russell Wilson, I still will not be able to give you a good definition of why that happened. I've seen some stats talking about their offensive line. I like the other pieces they have. I think that the wide receivers, while not flashy in general, Judy's great. Cortland Sutton is decent if they can stay healthy. I think Sean Payton will get this team to 500 or a little bit above just because of his coaching philosophy and his mentality. But it's a scary team to talk about. And this was the team that I wanted to start as well. They're at over 8.5, really $1.10 across the board. Because I think so many people in the market have no idea where to go. Like, was last year Russell Wilson? Is that what he really is when we let him cook to go back to a couple of years?
Yes.
Or was it poor coaching? I don't think that's the case, but I'm excited to see where that's going to go.
I mean, I'm thinking about the last. To me, it seemed that Russell Wilson came back early from a broken finger when he was quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. I would assume that would have healed in a year and a half or something, unless he like lost some of it and was playing with fireworks or something like that. But my thought is that it's hard to. I'm kind of a wait and see. You got to prove it to me first. Sean Payton certainly was the mastermind previously. I would say 8.5 minus 110 is about as splitting the difference as you could possibly be in this sport, considering they play 17 games now. So you're right. It might be one of those situations where if you're willing to step out and either be correct or be incorrect, that hopefully correct if we're betting this sort of stuff, that if you want to say they're good, it really doesn't seem to be that hard to win just one game and finish one game over 500 or the other way. And that's, I guess, why there are markets out there. I don't know that the Vegas Raiders probably shouldn't be on our list. So if we talk the Chiefs, we know are going to be good. Unfortunately, at 8.5, I think even if you go over there just barely, Broncos probably aren't going to win the AFC West. Do we think the Chargers have a realistic take, or I guess possibility of taking the AFC West from the Chiefs?
I've been burned by the Chargers. Justin Herbert is when I see him throw, I'm like, man, this doesn't add up. Like, this team should be so much better than it is. There's some weird decision making happening there. They have all the skill players if they can stay healthy. Quentin Johnston is another rookie that I kind of keep my eye on. I'm excited to see what he can do. Yeah, it's always the Chargers, right? Like, I feel like the last couple of years, we've assumed that the Chargers were going to be the team to take the next step. I think we're going to be looking at a different coaching regime if the Chargers don't take another step and actually get somewhere in the playoffs rather than giving away a massive lead last year.
Yeah, Anthony Lynn is not there to be blamed any longer, but
Ooh.
I'm not really sure it was always his fault, to be frank. Okay, so that does the AFC. We'll move to the NFC now. I think we're doing okay on time, but we'll see eventually as we get to the more loquacious NFC East with the Eagles, another odds-on favorite, minus 130. Cowboys come up next, plus 175, and the Giants all the way down 8-1. Are you trying to talk about Daboll here again?
I can. I figured it would make sense to talk about the Eagles as like
okay.
the
go ahead,
representative.
Please. Floor is yours.
I think just quickly on the Giants though, like, we all know that they overachieved massively last year, and I think that has something to do with Brian Daboll. I think Daniel Jones is another great option for like a backup quarterback because of his running ability. If you're talking fantasy football, I love the way that he puts his guys in the right position. But some of those games last year, like they were so great in 1-score games, and so often we see that variance flip from year to year. Maybe it happens here. I think that there is an element of this roster getting better with the Giants. But let's go to the Eagles, because they've now become like University of Georgia of the NFL, with just scooping up defensive players from the Eagles, and I think that's a pretty good acquisition strategy. Love what they have on the defensive side. I think what Jalen Hurts has turned into is just exceptional, as we know. Like that game, the Super Bowl last year, I mean, there's just, what he did was just so impressive in a losing effort. And to be real, like I watched him for so many years in college, and I did not see this coming from him. I think it does go into the coaching. The Eagles lost both of their coordinators to head coaching jobs last year. Shane Steichen to the Colts, and Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals. So who's running the ship there? Like, who's really the smart mind? And that's always what I'm interested in when I see coordinator changes. Like, is it the head coach that's really running this offense, or was the offensive coordinator the guy that was so smart and using Jalen Hurts in the right ways?
I mean, scary thing when the Eagles are second favorites to win the title. And you don't know that, and we won't know that for a little while. So if you're out there throwing money on a -130, you got to be either pretty confident in the Eagles that it was Mastriani as opposed to just the coordinators, or maybe you have little faith in the Dallas Cowboys. So I live in Dallas now. Andrew's from the Dallas area. He's moved down south a couple hours, but I am wondering with this whole trade of Trey Lance, I know that I'm sure if you really want to get all the lowdown, just listen to one of the Dallas talk radio stations. You could hear that forever. But what do you think, and this could be the last thing we touch on in this division, what do you think Dak Prescott thinks about that move?
I don't think he should think anything. I don't think he should think anything of it. He's the head, he's the quarterback. He's the guy that they have delegated the money to. Maybe in a year and a half, we can have a different discussion, but like right now, Trey Lance is a very, very raw prospect that hasn't truly shown anything. And Dak is, man, I don't want to go like hot sports opinions here.
Come on. That's what this is about.
Like a top 8, 9 quarterback. Is that even that? That's not even that spicy of a take, honestly. But, I mean, he's still going to have some accuracy issues, and we saw that in the postseason. Like, that game against the 49ers could have gone a much different way if he protects the football. I don't love talking about the Cowboys. I grew up in Dallas. Like, it's my least favorite team to talk about as someone that's watched them for 3 decades.
Well, considering they're America's team and they were on Sunday Night Football for what felt like 2 decades of my life, I think we've done enough. And for the Under Construction NFL podcast, feel free to slide in our DMs, give us some ideas on what we should name this, but we could probably move on from there. I just remember a certain quarterback in Green Bay not loving when another quarterback was drafted, kind of set him off a little bit. You never know really what that's necessarily going to mean, but it's just something that I've been thinking about a little bit. We'll move now to the NFC North, where we got the Lions, who are opening up this season on the road at Kansas City. Can't think of a tougher place on the road against the defending Super Bowl champion, who's also expected to win the Super Bowl, or most likely according to the betting odds. Not great, but they're the favorite in the North, which is kind of a big surprise to me. I'm sure you can't really trust, as we get the running out of time notification, we can't really trust Cousins, I guess, against good teams, but Jordan Love seems questionable. And I'm not really sure about Justin Fields either. He's honestly great fantasy quarterback, but that's a little bit different than throwing and including passes. Is there any, I guess, how do you see the NFC North finishing? That's probably my biggest interest.
I still think like the Lions were great at the end of last year. Everyone's going to remember that week 18 game where they beat the Packers.
Yep.
But now it's a completely different role. Now there are some pretty ugly games. If you look through some of the highlights, if you watch previous games from last year, that defense is pretty alarming.
Yep.
So
as a favorite to win a division too.
Exactly. I would not be, I don't have any interest. I do not have any stake in the Detroit Lions. Of anyone, I would look at the Packers as an opportunity to to go against what the market and what public opinion is right now.
Got it. Big Jordan Love fan, Andrew Schnicker. Okay, so we'll
Say
next
that.
move.
Do not say that.
I'm what I heard. I'll move now to the NFC South, where this might be the easiest division to gloss over, but we do have the New Orleans Saints as the plus 115 favorite, followed next by the Atlanta Falcons, which both Andrew and I are UT alums, so we're interested in Bijan and his career, but certainly a little concerned about any sort of team drafting a running back 8th overall. Then the Panthers 5-1, Bucks 8-1. Why are the Saints the favorite to win this division?
Because it's the ugliest. It's the least ugly winner. This is a terrible analogy. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Pageant, right? Like this
Sure.
division is pretty weak. And yes, we can gloss over it. And I have a feeling, not a feeling. I will talk about this more in just a couple minutes.
Okay. That's what we call the tease in the business.
This division is so weak. I think there's an opportunity there to grab a team to win the division that is not the Saints.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we're going to keep that to the end. I guess last but not least, I mean, I think miscongeniality you might have been going for.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
I wish you edited these podcasts.
Well, we're going live, one take like Jay-Z. And last but not least, we'll go to the NFC West. And we got San Francisco 49ers, a minus 200. So odds on 1-2 favorite to take the NFC West, followed next by the Seahawks at plus 220. Then the Rams 10-1, the Cardinals 28-1. The Rams and Cardinals both going for a number 1 pick, it seems. So I guess my biggest question, I think the most interesting topic on this page is probably the Seattle Seahawks and their potential stealing of the NFC West behind the golden arm of Geno Smith. But I'm not sure necessarily that he's the one to really do it. The 49ers, I mean, it seems to me that they have a lot of, I guess, eggs in the Brock Purdy basket. Do you see that being a problem for them in this division, or is that mainly in the playoffs, though that's a long way away?
I don't know how Kyle Shanahan does it. It does not matter who the quarterback is. They are an efficient, good enough offense to win the division, to compete for the conversation of a Super Bowl. Purdy, to me, was somebody in college that came on the scene as a freshman at Iowa State and really like stole the show, right? Like he was one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And then like nothing ever changed. He just stayed at the exact same level, didn't improve, maybe got a little worse as his career went on. So to me, Brock Purdy was not somebody I was like, oh, this is a NFL starting quarterback. But I'm not going to question Kyle Shanahan. And I would say, I'm not going to question Geno after what he did for most of last season either. It's very much, it's possible for him to have developed and understood this league enough and found the right place to make a difference.
I'm looking at the Super Bowl totals, or the numbers most recently. The 49ers being third most likely, tied for second actually with the Philadelphia Eagles, seems very, very, very complimentary of a team that has a question at quarterback, which is the most important position in this sport of all sports. I think that any of us watch on television that are televised, but maybe he's going to develop and turn more into an NFL ready quarterback. I know he's Bill Simmons' favorite, so I don't want to say anything too negative, but I know he's a big fan of the show, considering it's the first episode. But I think that might be all we really need to discuss, because the 49ers are basically locked in to win this division according to the betting odds. I'm not sure that I agree with that necessarily, but I also have found that it's probably worth it to respect the NFL marketplace, because a lot of times they know what they're talking about. And this is a part of the show where we're going to jump in and stop respecting the marketplace, because we're going to give some best bets. Since it's our first show, yes, we're working our way into a name. I'm probably going to put this up on the regular podcast feed that I do for the soccer stuff and baseball stuff that I do from time to time. So let us know in the comments or wherever you would like. If you'd like it somewhere else, if you want us to name it something, we'll think about it. We'll come back to it, but we'll be out here Wednesday nights going forward throughout the end of the NFL season. Going to go through the lines, going to give us I think where we want to go, and try to get you ready for the NFL each week and try to make some money on it. But you've hung around for so long, you might have hit subscribe on YouTube, or potentially gave us a 5-star review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. I don't know. Whatever you want to do is great. but it's best bet time. And Andrew, you kind of hinted to something a little bit earlier. Might have been a division that, isn't the prettiest, isn't the prom queen, but potentially it's a spot to make some money. So give us your best bet.
Yeah, we'll go to the NFC South. I like the Atlanta Falcons to win the NFC South at plus 200. I really like what Arthur Smith has accumulated there on the offensive side. I think Desmond Ridder, if he is just average, is good enough. I think Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan, yes, in the long term, you don't want to be drafting a running back that high, but we've seen Bijan and he is electric at this point. Maybe 4 or 5 years from now, we're having a different conversation. I think the offensive line is decent. It's good enough, and they've spent some draft capital there. And I also just want to look at that schedule. If we're talking about a weak division, you're playing Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield 2 times, and you're playing Bryce Young or whoever else with the Panthers, and you're playing the Saints, who their defense is always good, and Derek Carr probably doesn't get enough respect, but I think when you look at that schedule, it really lines up well for the Falcons to surprise some people. So I'm going Falcons to win the division plus 200.
I like it. I think Derek Carr gets plenty of respect and far more than he actually deserves. For my best bet, I'm going to go, I swear it's not just because I'm wearing the shirt, but we're going to go with the Tennessee Titans plus 325 to win the AFC South. It's just weird to me to see the Jaguars with a odds-on favorite next to them. I don't really have a ton besides that. It just seems like that's too big of a jump for me with Jacksonville. Yes, they've made a number 1 pick. They invested in a quarterback that might be a little bit better than what the Titans have at quarterback themselves. I'm just going to trust what I've seen from Mike Vrabel and his teams in the past. I like them in ball control situations. It's not sexy. It's definitely not the prom queen offense you want, but Derrick Henry, honestly, the longer he plays, it seems like later in the season, he's so hard to tackle. It doesn't seem to me like the Colts or the Texans are really going to be fighting for this, especially what's going on in the Jonathan Taylor saga, excuse me. I'm just not necessarily a believer in the Jags, so I'll give you the Titans plus 325. And I think that'll do it for this episode. This is the first one, of course. Comment wherever you see it, share it with your friends, family, listen to it before you go to sleep if that's what you really need, but send it to your boss, something like that. Anyway, thanks for joining us. You can follow Andrew Schnicker, _SCHNITKER. I've been practicing so long in my life to spell that right, and I'm what good. I did it good. Good. All right. And you can follow me, _G Warner on Twitter as well, Instagram, Patreon, wherever you want to find me. Thanks for joining. We'll come back Wednesday night next week, probably for release, maybe either in the wee hours Wednesday or maybe early Thursday. Depends on when the janitor's cleaning out the pipes. So we'll see. But thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you all soon.